Welcome to the Stronger Together podcast brought to you by Sandpoint Strength and Conditioning. Today I am joined by my lovely wife, Jen. We did some self-experimentation with continuous glucose monitors, and we are going to tell you all about it. So listen in. But before that, don't forget, we are brought to you by Momentous Supplements. You can get 15% off your order at livemomentous.com by using the discount code Sandpoint Strength, all one word. All right, enjoy. Hola, bienvenidos.
Bienvenidos.
Welcome, Jenny.
Good morning, Kenneth John.
Let's talk about blood sugar today. Let's get everyone pumped about pricking themselves and tracking their blood sugar. Sound good?
I'm in.
Cool. So for context for y'all, we are nerds and we like to learn and experiment on ourselves. And one of those most recent experiments was a continuous glucose monitor, which up until now was kind of prohibitive to get unless you are diabetic or had a prescription or yada yada. That has become a little bit more accessible. And so we decided to experiment on ourselves with a continuous glucose monitor from Abbott Labs. And the app is called Lingo. And so, yeah, we did that. That was about a month ago, though. Actually, perhaps a little bit longer than that. Yeah. We've had a bit of a busy travel season. But we wanted to talk about what we learned, why people might want to do this, and how we can help if people do want to pursue this for themselves. So, Jenny, take it from here. Why should we care?
I mean, for a myriad of reasons. Obviously, the first thing people will think of is obviously type 2 diabetes, but we care about it way before it ever gets to that point that you would be there, right?
Yeah.
So basically, glucose, any sort of sugar or carbohydrate you eat, right? It's like our body's number one energy supply. So we care about how our body responds to those sugars because it determines a lot of things. Like it determines whether you're storing fat or burning fat. It determines your energy levels, so crashes and hunger hormones and how all those things play a role in your choices, your overall energy. And then obviously we want to avoid insulin resistance, which is something that, we're hearing more and more about these days. And it's basically if you're continuously spiking your blood sugar over and over again, your cells are going to stop responding to the hormone that gets released, which is insulin. And that reduces your body's ability to actually use that glucose efficiently. And it ultimately slows down your metabolism. So that's just a high level of why we care about it, why we might want to monitor it.
And if your body sucks at it enough, you're going to have to start supplementing with it and injecting yourself with insulin.
And that's when we move to the type 2 diabetes realm, right?
Yep. People will probably be familiar with some numbers based on blood work, which their fasted A1C is probably the only one they've ever really paid attention to. And maybe not even paid attention to, but that's the only one that you may have, seen on a blood panel or heard referenced from your physician. Typically that's what do you fast 24 hours for that test? Do you remember?
I think it's usually 12. I think it's usually the night before the test and you go in fasted. But
okay. And you want that number to be under 100 is what.
Yes.
It'll probably only be addressed if it's over 100. If it's under, you probably didn't even hear about it.
So why would someone want to, so you get that test, right, at the doctor's. Why would we want to go to this higher step with a continuous glucose monitor?
Yeah, good. Excellent question. You're so smart.
That's why you married me.
It's the fasted level is one part of the overall equation and response and how your body is behaving with blood sugar and with insulin. The initial reaction, I think, is so much more acute, but it has been harder, like I said in the beginning, harder to get numbers on. But you see what your body is doing based on different foods at different times and different, what your activity levels are. And like for me, I've never tried it. I think for like broadly, I think one of the most important things that people can get really comfortable with is this idea of self-experimentation in the pursuit of data and knowledge about themselves and their own individual organism.
Yes.
Like, and it doesn't, I think that again, like say in the same vein as like tracking food, and tracking sleep and tracking workouts and like all this sort of data stuff, I think people can get really intimidated by it because it sounds like a real pain in the ass.
And they think they're going to have to do it forever, right?
Correct. Yeah,
like
exactly.
Every time you add something, it's like, okay, this is my forever. But like, especially with the glucose monitor, that's not the point.
No, exactly. And like, I don't track much of anything at all other than like I do my HRV because it's really easy. But other than that, like I don't track anything, but I have tracked almost everything. Yeah. And therein lies the magic of understanding. Like through what we'll talk about here in a second is the 2-week period of time that we did this continuous glucose monitor. I learned a whole shitload. And I think you did too. And I had no idea. Like this was all brand new. I could have probably guessed at some of these things, but without actual data, hard data, this was like I opened up a whole new set of doors from which I can make decisions on in the future.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a side road from what you asked, but why we wanted to do this was that self-experimentation, understanding of food intake, timing, etc.
Yeah. It was so powerful. For me, it was, how do you want to talk about this? Because I can just dive in
let's talk about our own individual, like, first of all, I think let's frame it up. Yeah, how it works. So don't do what I did. This is pretty awesome. I'm a moron.
Kind of a Kenny Marquardt move.
I think we had just gotten back from Mexico, long travel day. We had ordered them while we were in Mexico, and mine showed up like the day before we got back. So anyways, I was like, yeah, let's hook this baby up. I'm going to learn. Now, I was probably jet lagged, probably tired, maybe hungover even. And there's instructions in the box. Now, basically, this thing is supposed to have a super easy application. Like it has here's how to do this. It's like got a little thing that, yes, you will prick yourself with a needle, but then there's a microfilament that goes in the hole that you made with a needle, and it just rides on there for the next 2 weeks. I managed to screw this up. I read the instructions incorrectly. I don't remember exactly what I screwed up, but basically I had to
take the top off.
Yeah,
you kept
something
trying
like
to
that.
Pump it without the top being taken off.
No, I think I smashed it down on the counter because that's what it said to do. It anyways, but the point is that I had to kind of rebuild this thing now that it was in pieces, and I felt like the needle was supposed to just live in my arm, and it's like it's not a giant needle, but it's big enough. So I jabbed this thing into my arm, stick it there, tape it down in my cobbled
come out
together
into the kitchen, and there's it's like a MacGyver setup, and he's got all this. What are you doing?
MacGyvered CGM monitor. And so I proceed to go about my day for about an hour with I'll say it's a 3/8 inch needle in my arm. And I'm moving stuff around. I'm doing stuff in the shop. And I'm like, good grief, this is painful. I wonder if this is a real pain in the ass. How do people live with this thing? And I do a little bit more exploring, and I realize the needle is not supposed to live in your arm for 2 weeks, and that I'm a moron. So my mileage was different than Jen. Jen's was quite a bit easier after she learned from my mistakes, and it is quite an easy 20-second process of smashing it in your arm. Yeah, leave it in there, turn on the app, link the thing up, and you're good to go. And you're getting data almost immediately. It starts to sync within 30 minutes, I want to say. And you are seeing a real-time measure of your blood sugar. And there's
And
like
it is
lines and reference points.
fascinating.
Yeah. And it's wildly cool to see. You watch it happen. And I think that's like the best thing. So first of all, it doesn't happen right away, typically. Some things potentially, but most things it's like within a half an hour, you'll start to see that spike. So do you want to talk about what your learnings were for you? Or do you want to kind of keep bouncing back and forth?
Yeah, we can just I can talk about mine. I've been without doing the glucose monitor. I've been kind of on a blood sugar journey for the last like 18 months, right? Really trying to optimize fiber intake and veggies, and I've kind of been nerding out. I'm always like telling everybody to add more fiber to their plate. Um because especially for females, as we age, this becomes like females are definitely more prone to insulin resistance as we enter that perimenopause and menopausal state. And so I've been just wanting to get ahead of it, right? So I've been implementing a lot of the things that they actually suggest in the app for the last 18 months, but haven't been tracking it. So for me, it was really cool to see that those things are working. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, my blood sugar was freaking fantastic. Like
Yeah, you
it,
won for sure.
I it was I don't win at a lot of things, but I did win at this. I had minimal spikes the other day. They give you this like lingo score, which basically is measuring how many times you like spike and come back down. Is that accurate,
Yep.
Henny? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so my lingo score was really good. So on the days where I ate normally, like my normal eating schedule, which we can let's give an overview and then we can kind of dive into like specifics. I was in the 60s and 70s, which is really good. Like
For your
my
fast, for your resting blood sugar. For
mhm,
your yeah.
yeah,
Was
and
it
then
really?
oh yeah, and then my spikes were like under 100. So
That sounds low. Are you sure?
I can look
No,
back
no,
at
no.
the
That's fine. We don't need
right.
to.
But this is if I'm eating. So I was if I was eating, my high fiber, high protein. But when I introduced, sugars, alcohol, things like that, obviously my spikes went higher, right? But if I was eating the way I'm normally eating, that's where I was kind of hanging out, is under 100.
Yeah. And I was the opposite. Not the opposite, but I had some pretty big spikes. And this is probably going to sound terrible, but I've never really had to pay too much attention to a lot of these. Like, again, I've learned a lot from my tracking, but it's more been an optimization thing than it has been like a holy crap, I'm in dysfunction. And, I don't get sick. Whatever. And this is, again, might sound terrible, but that's just the reality that I live in. I kind of I figured that I would get this thing and I'd be like, well, all right, cool. Like, I'm good. I never need to do this again. And that was not the case for me. I have typically eaten higher. I've typically eaten fairly high carbohydrates. We've dramatically publicized my meal
Yeah, we
intakes.
all know
Like,
what you eat.
yeah, it hasn't changed. It changed a little bit since this actually now, but I have had the same things. I felt pretty good. I've never noticed any sort of reason to change any of these things. But I realized that I have massive blood sugar swings after my meals. So I am apparently less carbohydrate tolerant than I suspected.
Which is interesting with the amount of muscle that you have on your frame,
Yes,
too.
correct. Yeah, true. But something that we have played with a little bit for me is increasing my carbohydrates in other contexts. Like
Hmm.
my taco meal has stayed about the same. My dinner meal has stayed about the same. But for breakfast, there was a period of time in which I was trying like oatmeal or, something that would be higher carbohydrate, thinking that, as a highly muscled athlete, high activity person, like I should probably be eating more carbohydrates to sustain activity. And that's always made me feel like crap, like terribly. Like I would swing hard in a mood and feeling wise when I would start my day with heavy carbohydrate or high carbohydrates. So I never did that. Like stopped doing that. Go back. I went back to eggs, and which is according to the continuous glucose monitor. Like I see zero movement on my glucose levels there when I eat eggs. When I go to my lunch, though, I was seeing a huge swing, like 60 points or so.
You were
Sometimes
at
more.
you went to 150 one day.
No, I went to like 170, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's high.
Yeah, I know. And yeah, so changing those things around. We did that. Had that experience a couple times at dinner, and I think that I will fall on the sword here and admit that like my fiber intake is not what it should be, and that by increasing that, it definitely made a difference, and that was a good change for me. So
Yeah, I think, we also noticed for you, and this is true for most people, it's like when you're choosing a carbohydrate source, choosing one with more fiber. So, like, you did not have that response with beans.
correct. Yep. It's hard to make tacos out of beans.
It is, but we're trying to make some, and
No, I
we
know.
actually
I know.
we're gonna order another round of the monitor. Just like I do think that this, like the first 2 weeks is like definitely experimentation, and then we had to leave again, so we didn't do a second round. But I think a second round would be optimization, right? So the first round you're really playing around with, like, I went and ate a chocolate chip cookie and just wanted to see
Yeah.
what happened, right? I had a drink because I wanted to see what
Oh
happened,
yeah, that was
right? Oh yeah.
purely
Yeah, that was
purely
the only
altruistic.
reason.
Yep.
No, but you want to play around with these things, but I think then a second round, what I'm looking for is like that optimization, right? Of like going at it from a more of a, I want, like, what are we going to do going forward, right? And so like for
Mhm.
you, I think, we're trying to play around with, all right, what if we do a corn tortilla instead of the flour, because we notice the the flour tortilla just spikes your glucose like
Yeah.
crazy, right?
And it was a big difference for me between 2, 3, and 4. Like those were some massive, which is 25 carbohydrate.
Tortillas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
25 grams of carbohydrate per tortilla. Like if I go 100 at a meal, like that's a lot, which I
A
probably
lot.
could have told you. But again, I didn't feel like I was going to have any sort of issues with this. I just call it whatever you want, but I just figured I'd be all right, cool. Like I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, but it was a good
I
learning
went
for
in
me. So.
thinking I'd be broken because I'm
Right.
always broken, and I
Yeah.
actually was like, "Oh, I'm okay."
Yeah. Totally. So yeah, what we started the conversation with in terms of like how big of a pain in the ass it is. It's like the same thing I think we recommend for most people as they get going with food tracking or any of these things is like track for a while, learn your lessons, try and implement the behavior according to what you learned, and then do it again in like a quarter and see what's happening now. And it's either going to get you back on, like you'll see what you've actually changed. And if nothing's changed because you haven't changed anything, then like, yeah, wow, magic. And if it has changed, great, then you continue to refine your decision making and your behaviors according to what you are now noticing. And it should kind of like, bring the variation down to a minimum. Right? Your frequency is no longer swinging wildly like mine was blood sugar wise or weight wise or whatever wise, but you're not doing these massive ebbs and flows. You're more or less staying on the same path, even if you stray from one side to the other. That frequency shift just changes minimally. Not changes minimally. It changes to a minimal swing.
I think one of the most interesting things about this was correlating it to energy levels, right? Like, I mean, I just played around with eating a chocolate chip cookie, like with nothing else in my, like,
Yeah.
like 2 hours after a meal, right? I watched my energy just tank after
Yeah.
that. Like I could see it, but I could feel it too. And there was something really powerful about the visual and the actual, like, feeling it on that deep level with the knowledge of like, I did, like, that is not worth it to me. Like,
Yeah, totally.
and I think that's really the power in this is that, understanding a lot of the blood sugar spikes happen from the small choices, right? Like if you're already eating pretty healthy, like you're probably, you probably are in an okay spot, but it's like the in between stuff. And we also noticed a really big difference with like how when the ways you pair foods makes a huge difference in what your blood sugar does. So like for instance, eating that chocolate chip cookie on its own outside of a meal, giant spike. But if I have a full meal, I line my gut with protein and fiber first, and then I have like a piece of dark chocolate afterwards, just like a little bump,
Yep.
right? So food order matters a lot.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that like even seeing it real time, I think it made the impact more powerful. There was less, I think the hard, like it's such hard data. There's no fluff in this thing. It's like legitimately you're watching this thing happen. There was so much less of a qualitative, oh, well, maybe sort of, that I think it made it so much more impactful. Like, nope, that's exactly what happened and why this happened. That the it's hard to deny, right? So you can say all the things you might want about certain things, but like for me, again, there's nothing I can change about that. Like that's the reality for me. Like I probably need to eat less tortillas for
More vegetables.
Yes, that too. Or I mean, and again, I'm not trying to like walk back what I just said, but again, the like extrapolations from the data, I was during a training cycle of less intensity. So I was doing a lot more like long sustainable cardio, which would require less carbohydrates. So yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. I could improve that stuff, but there's also some more experimentation that can be done through this further tracking of this thing. And so next time we do this, when I'm in a different training cycle, or recognizing that like I'm not, despite the fact that like I don't lose muscle when I go to a different training cycle where it's long and sustainable, I still don't require that amount of carbohydrates, and I should probably go to a lower carb, higher vegetable,
For you, right?
Yeah, for me, right, exactly. During that kind of an event, or not event, but like period of time.
Absolutely.
So, I also found that alcohol doesn't really make my blood sugar spike at all. So there's a win there for me.
And it makes mine go crazy.
I'm very Irish. I think there's something
Yes.
in there that's
There 100% is. Like there is
Yeah.
my like German blood does not know how to process alcohol.
Yeah. But again, I think that's so like one of the things that I think we both hate so much is this universality amongst dogmas that says everybody should do this or nobody should do this or you should never do that. And what I think my favorite part about this and all the things that we were really trying to do is individualize this to the person and say it depends. Here's the here's how it could be, here's how it couldn't be, here's what the facts are. But at the end of the day, every single person is going to be very different. And while I think that we will still advocate for like 80% of the same for 90% of people, right? Like protein and vegetables, great. Work out every day, including strength training and cardiovascular work, great. You should be doing all of those things. The nuances become hyper individualized. People love to tell, oh, you shouldn't eat within whatever, 37 minutes of going to sleep. No idea. Depends on the person. You should never eat carbohydrates. You should carbs are the devil. Sugar's the devil. This, that, the other. Like it's just very much depends on the person.
I saw this Instagram reel the other day that made me want to throw my phone across the street when I saw it, but was basically like, if you're on social media, you might have seen this gal, the glucose goddess, and she talks a lot about exactly what we're talking about today: monitoring your glucose, understanding the different spikes, eating foods in the right order, those sorts of things. And the gal was basically like, she's a fraud. I can eat as many carbohydrates as I want, blah, blah, blah. And I am like looking at this girl and she's like 27 years old. She's like an endurance athlete and she's got a crap ton of muscle on her frame. Like, of course, her body
Yeah.
processes carbohydrates better, right? She's set up for success there, but not everybody's the same. And really, like, your movement and your muscle play a huge role in how you synthesize that, glucose.
Yeah. And genetics
And
and
genetics are huge, yeah.
yeah.
But again,
That
it's not a one. I'm agreeing with you on that, in that everybody's different.
yeah. But you can take responsibility for it. So it's easy to say, "Oh, I am this." Like to go the other direction. It's easy to like get complacent and say, "Wow, I just have shitty genetics." Like, well, not really. Like you may have genetics that predispose you towards certain things, but it's your responsibility to figure that shit out and own it and recognize like what I did, like what we both did is like, okay, well, let's figure out the actual data and understand what that means for me.
Yeah. And I mean, the same is true when we talk about metabolism, right? People are just like, well, I have a slow or a fast. Like, your age and your genetics play like this part of a role in your metabolism, but then there's all these other factors that you actually have control over.
Yeah.
So, same thing with your blood sugar. Yeah, there might be a component of age, of genetics, and there's a lot of other factors that you can control outside of that.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well,
So take responsibility.
yeah, for sure. So what are we allowed to make recommendations about this? I feel like this is kind of like blurring the lines on
I think we can, like, honestly, the plate method is a great place to start here. Like, this is, we can't tell you individualized portions. We can't tell you what your macros should be, obviously. But we can say, hey, if you're building a plate with half veggies, right? So filling that plate with lots of greens, lots of color, rainbow of color, a lean protein of some sort, and then moderating carbohydrates depending on your level of activity, and 1 to 2 servings of fat, like, you're probably going to be in a really good space with your blood sugar levels.
but in terms of like doing some monitoring for themselves.
Oh, got it. Okay, sorry.
I mean, I think that we can probably safely say like, yeah, go ahead and I don't know, give it a whirl
Yeah.
or don't. We don't really care. That's our
It's
position.
just like getting any other sort of monitor.
No,
right?
I know. I'm just saying. I'm not going to advocate for the medical. I don't want to blur that line, but I think, yeah, if you want to do it, go nuts. It's called Lingo through Abbott Labs. Look it up. It's like $50 for 2 weeks. And if you want to understand more about that, that's a great place to start. And you'll learn a bunch. Certain of
And
it.
the app really walks you through, like, if you're unfamiliar with this territory, it really walks you through kind of what you should be looking for, gives you suggestions. So
Yeah.
it's great. And I've
Yeah.
had clients use other monitors, and I consistently hear that Lingo has like the best data and the most easy to use interface for, yeah.
Cool. Don't jab the needle in your arm for 2 weeks.
Don't ask Kenny to come over and help you put it on. But yeah, I mean, I think this is, if you're, I would recommend this for anybody who is feeling like a couple things, like feeling like they're just like more inflamed, or they're holding on to more than they think that they wish they were. The other thing is, if your energy is tanked, like if you're feeling exhausted at the end of the day, or you're really getting like a lot of sugar cravings or 3 p.m. crashes, like, this would be a really interesting tool for you to understand what's going on in your body.
Yeah. I mean, I think honestly everybody should probably do it, but
Yeah.
just because you're like, I cannot fathom that you wouldn't learn a lot. Actually, I think most people will learn a lot from it. So
yeah, I mean, my energy is solid, and I learned a lot. So
yeah, and you won.
I did. Do I get like a medal of some sort?
Yes.
If somebody is looking for help on nutrition and optimization, how can they get in touch with us?
Well, I'm at Coach Kenny Marquardt on the Instagram. And you, what are you now?
We're the Flourish Girls, and together with Amanda Abadgen, we own Flourish Nutrition Coaching. We help high achieving women get their energy back and reclaim their waistline at the same time.
That's awesome. Love it. Cool. Well, that is that.
All right.
All right. Sayonara.
Have a great day.
You too.
Go
dear.
eat some protein and veggies.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, if you guys need some more help with any of the things that we talked about, feel free to get in touch with us. I am at Coach Kenny Marquardt or at Sandpoint Strength. And Jen is at the Flourish Girls on Instagram. Or you can book a no sweat intro at sandpointstrength.com. Also, don't forget, we are brought to you by Momentous Supplements. You can get 15% off of your order by using the discount code SandpointStrength, all one word, at livemomentous.com.